Welcome to the Recon module of Lesson 2, Types and Stages of a Breach, which is part of the Symantec Technical Foundation Security Solutions course. After completing this module, you should be able to define the Recon stage of a security breach, describe the ways in which Recon poses a direct threat to the customer, and understand some of the key tools and techniques used by attackers to gain information about vulnerable resources in a customer's environment. In this module, we will first define Recon as a breach stage and briefly touch on the general methods for gaining information about vulnerable resources in a customer's environment. In the next section, we will describe an attack based on information easily found on social networking sites and through other Recon methods, and explain how this information can be used to gain the trust of a vulnerable user within a targeted company. We will end the module by reviewing the key takeaways. When we talk about the Recon phase of a breach, this is where the criminals, hackers, organized crime groups, and even government entities in some cases try to gain information about users or resources within a company in order to customize an attack that can then lead to incursion and the other stages of a breach. The criminals perform Recon using social engineering, social networks, insider knowledge, data mining, and espionage in order to build a profile of a company's vulnerable users or assets. Social engineering is exploiting the natural human tendency to want to help others, and it can be used to obtain information about an organization. Impersonation generally means creating some sort of character and playing out a role. Sometimes this could involve just calling up and saying, "Hi, this is Jim in IT. We need your password to unlock one of your business accounts." In some cases, an attacker will study a real individual in an organization and wait until that person is out of town to impersonate them over the phone. Dumpster diving involves sifting through trash or discarded items to collect information from company directories and manuals, printouts of account information, including usernames and passwords, source code, and proprietary information, as well as decommissioned computers and storage devices. With persuasion, the main objective is to convince the person disclosing the information that the social engineer is in fact a person that they can trust with that sensitive information. Insider knowledge is when ex-employees, acquaintances, or associates provide detailed knowledge about potential targets, or the attacker himself has an intimate knowledge of processes and procedures specific to the targeted organization. They may be familiar with the schedules of targeted individuals, as well as having an understanding of internal politics and relationships in order to identify users who could be used to gain access to coveted resources. Social networks are a place to share private and personal information in public locations and can be used to learn more about the user. Details such as hobbies and pastimes, favorite sports teams, and restaurants can be used to convince the target the attacker has many things in common with the user to build trust. Details about politics or charities can be used to emotionally manipulate the user to pave the way for additional stages in the data breach. Data mining is where publicly available information can provide a really great place to start Recon through company websites, published articles, and company directories. Data can also be mined from databases, web searches, and browser histories that the attacker may have access to. Espionage is the covert observation of a target to discover the target's vulnerabilities. This is typically performed by nation states or large organizations in order to identify a targeted user's habits and routines, as well as the locations they physically travel to or from. Espionage can also be used to glean confidential information such as account details, passwords, and access control credentials. Now that we've defined Recon and described some of the tools and methods used, let's look at ways an attacker can leverage these methods to target an organization. In our example, the attacker is after information stored on a company's secured servers. In order to access those secured servers, the cybercriminal chooses to identify a user within the organization that has information that can lead to accessing those secure servers. In order to start the search for vulnerable users, the attacker starts with a visit to the company's public website to gather general information about the organization. The About section of many websites has information on the corporate structure, sometimes including the names of top-level executives. The Careers or Now Hiring sections can provide contact information for the Human Resources Department. Local directory lookups can also return this information for attackers looking to launch an attack that utilizes the physical locations of company headquarters or branch offices. From this search, the cybercriminal has identified the names of senior executives that can potentially be leveraged to elicit further information that will lead to a successful incursion of the organization. The attacker has chosen an industry that they have experience with, and they are familiar with the processes and procedures utilized by the company, and they know how to say the right things to current employees of the organization in order to make it sound like they are a legitimate part of the organization. Using these skills, the cybercriminal can often infiltrate the company either locally or remotely and create social bonds with low-level employees who can provide information on the general habits and schedules of various targets that can lead to the desired assets or resources. A call to the HR department can lead to the disclosure of innocent-sounding information that enables the cybercriminal to piece together names and contact information within the company. Because of this insider knowledge, the attacker is also familiar with the applications that are commonly used in the organization and knows that PDF documents, for instance, are frequently shared between users. A few leading questions to the right person divulges the exact version number of the application creating the documents, so the attacker can create a piece of malware that can exploit known vulnerabilities in that version. Once the attacker has a number of contacts as well as some information on the relationships of those targets to the desired assets, they can leverage social networking sites to get more personal information about a specific targeted user that has the potential to lead to accessing the secured servers. The attacker visits a promising target's social media sites and gets information that the user has recently participated, for instance, in a motorcycle rally in support of a charitable cause. The attacker now has enough personal information on the target to attempt sending an email with an infected attachment created specifically for the user. And because this attachment is created in a unique fashion designed to appeal to this particular user, antivirus definitions and other malware scanning techniques won't pick this up as a malicious file. This email that's being sent has enough personal details that are familiar to the target and specific enough to lull the user into a false sense of security, despite them being cautious about spam email or knowing that they shouldn't open attachments from unknown users. In reality, this may require a number of emails back and forth to build the confidence of the user before he finally opens an infected attachment. Once the user clicks on the attachment, the malicious software runs, which can perform a variety of tasks, such as installing keyloggers, screen scrapers, or other tools to assist in incursion, which can then provide the important information required to access the protected servers. We'll cover these incursion tools in the next section. First of all, Recon is the first discrete stage in a data breach. It's when criminals or unauthorized parties try to gather information about a user in a targeted organization that can then be used to create profiles and gain trust to lead to the incursion stage of a breach. Next, we learn that there are many methods to gather information during the Recon stage of a breach. Some examples include social networks, insider knowledge, data mining, and espionage. We also described a Recon attack using information leveraged from Recon tools to gain the trust of a user within a targeted organization.